이번 목적지는 숨겨진 아이비로 알려진 곳인데요. 바로 칼턴 칼리지입니다. US 뉴스 앤 월드 리포트에 따르면 칼턴 칼리지는 1997년부터 꾸준히 미국 리버럴 아츠 대학 순위에서 10위 안에 들었다고 해요. 2020년에는 공동 9위였죠. 칼턴 칼리지는 교수진의 교육 수준이 최상위권인 것으로 잘 알려져 있는데요. 2021년에는 미국의 리버럴 아츠 컬리지 중에서 학부 교육 부문 1위에 올랐답니다. 칼스라는 애칭으로 불리는 이곳의 학생들은 지적 호기심을 충족시켜주는 수준 높은 학문을 누릴 수 있죠. 2020년 The Chronicle of Higher Education에 따르면 칼턴 칼리지는 풀브라이트 장학생을 가장 많이 배출한 학교로도 인정받았습니다. 숨은 보석 같은 학교를 더 알아볼 준비 되셨나요? 함께 가시죠. 저는 미국 미시간 대학교에서 경제학을 공부하며 유학생활을 시작한 이현진입니다. 여러분과 함께 미국에서의 대학생활을 엿보며 학생과 교직원을 직접 만나 더 깊은 이야기를 들어보려고 합니다. 미국 명문 대학들을 탐방할 준비가 되셨나요? 그럼 출발합니다. 미시시피 강을 따라 강의 발원지를 향해 거슬러 올라가다 보면 미네소타주 노스필드라는 작은 도시에 칼턴 칼리지가 자리하고 있는데요. 브라이언 스완 씨를 만나 이 큰 꿈을 가진 대학에 대해 더 알아보았습니다. So tell me, what is it that makes Carleton so special?
I've joked from time to time, Carleton is the best kept secret. Consistently, we're ranked #1 in quality undergraduate teaching among liberal arts colleges. The sort of research opportunities that you have as an undergraduate at Carleton springboard so many of our students to go on to earn PhDs, but also master's degrees, medical degrees, law degrees, and so on. Another area of strength really is our emphasis on writing across the curriculum. Even if you major in a math or science field, you'll become a better writer. Communicative skills are essential for your work in the 21st century. And so the way that you're expected to write at Carleton is a skill set that prepares you very well for any sort of career path you want to take. But what I really love about Carleton is not just the academics, but really the community. There are many places in the United States that offer top-notch academics. Carleton is one of them. But there are very few places where people will go out of their way to help you, that will welcome you with open arms, that will be part of your family for the rest of your life.
I understand you're a Carleton graduate yourself. How did you become part of the family?
The backstory, I grew up in Kentucky, right? So I did not grow up in Minnesota. And so when I was a high school senior, my mom wanted me to see how cold Minnesota was compared to the other places I was looking at. But what I was really impressed by during my visit was the warmth of the community, as well as the level of academics. People really take their academics seriously at Carleton, but they don't take themselves too seriously.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, Carleton has been known as a place where there's a little quirkiness among campus, and part of that is the sense of humor. Sometimes the phrase I use is that it's pretentious to say that we're unpretentious, but Carleton is a place where people really are more interested in making a quick joke or a witty pun rather than just trying to one-up the person next to them academically.
Does that extend to the faculty as well?
Another aspect of Carleton that is really important is just the lengths that faculty go to really get to know students. The vast majority of professors I interact with at Carleton never wanted me to call them doctor or professor. They wanted me to call them by their first name. They wanted me to actually get to know them.
What else would you say is unique about Carleton's academics?
Certainly, I think one of the things that sets us apart is the research that students are required to do before graduating. One of the graduation requirements at Carleton is doing your senior integrative project and do a deep dive into something you're passionate about. Your faculty that advise you in this process really are invested in you. You'll find professors taking their advisees to conferences with them, giving students the opportunity to work and research alongside them. And all that is sort of a springboard for students doing their own independent research within their field of study.
칼턴 칼리지는 작은 대학이지만 학생들의 야망은 크죠. 미국 국립과학재단에 따르면 칼턴 칼리지 졸업생의 과학 및 공학 분야 박사 학위 취득 비율은 유수의 연구 대학교를 뛰어넘는다고 합니다. 칼턴 칼리지의 이공계 교육 철학을 더 알아보기 위해 물리학을 가르치는 아르젠두 파타나야 교수님을 만나보았습니다. Hi, Arjendu. It's nice to meet you.
Hi, Emily. Very nice to meet you too.
What first drew you to physics?
I've been into physics since I was around 11 or 12 years old. There's a depth and beauty to believing that what you do is always true. It's like every single atom that ever existed in the history of the universe follows this equation is something I get to say. And sometimes I joke about it and say I'm in physics because it's partway between being a poet and an engineer.
That's a great perspective. From your vantage point, what makes Carleton's academics special?
We have an unusual curriculum. We teach in a funny way. The students' experience of a physics class is more focused on them being self-learners than I have seen anywhere else. In the upper division, there are classes where I don't lecture at all. It's only based in response to questions that they've sent in, and we struggle with problems together. This is very unusual for the United States, and it's completely normal at Carleton.
I've heard that there are a lot of opportunities for undergrads to get into research as well.
The number of students who work on research starting early has been growing. Anyone who wants to can find a pretty serious long-term research project. And as a result, some of them have landed up being on the LIGO gravitational waves discovery paper. We belong to LIGO, and some of our students were on that Nobel Prize winning paper, which is kind of amazing. And some of this is because we're leading towards our integrative exercise. You cannot get a physics degree without completing an independent learning exercise.
I'm glad you brought up those independent learning exercises. What does that look like with your students?
For 10 weeks, you study something on your own, you give a talk on it, and you write a 20 to 30 page paper on it. And this isn't research. This is more, you have become the resident expert on, let's say, the physics of how a gecko holds to ceiling upside down.
Right.
It's jaw-dropping to watch someone give a talk where they're clearly the person in the room who knows more than anyone else. I heard a couple of talks where I was like, I would give you a job as a professor today if I didn't know you were 22.
So I've heard a lot about the tight community at Carleton. How does that carry over into the classroom?
I know all my students well. Even in my largest classes, I know them by name. Best way to say it is that if you think going to college is about knowledge or information, that's all on Google and Wikipedia anyway. What you're going for is interaction and feedback. If I was to quote from my teaching application essay 20 plus years ago, education is not about the filling of a bucket or the lighting of a fire.
아르젠들 교수님의 교육 철학은 정말 멋지네요. 그런데 학생의 관점도 알아보고 싶어서 4학년 알리 브라운 로스를 만나보았습니다. Hi, Ali. It's so nice to meet you.
Hi, Emily. It's great to meet you.
What's the campus like at Carleton from a student perspective?
So I am a tour guide at Carleton. I've been a tour guide since I was a freshman. And I think the ideal way to bring people through campus is on a fall day at Carleton. So the fall colors in Minnesota are incredible. And Carleton has an 800-acre arboretum, which is one of my favorite parts of Carleton.
That arboretum sounds so beautiful. But I have to ask, isn't Minnesota really cold?
It's definitely cold, but the snow is gorgeous. It's so beautiful. And there are so many fun things to do in winter. So Carleton has, like a lot of colleges, kind of a main quad, but we call it the bald spot. It really transforms while we're all away for winter break. Carleton floods the bald spot and makes 2 naturally formed ice rinks. So there are always lots of hockey games and people figure skating. There's also a very spirited and competitive broomball league.
Wait, what's broomball?
Kind of like a mix between hockey and soccer, and there's always a group of professors, and our president usually plays. He's been a reigning champ for a while.
Okay, so that's winter. What about spring?
Spring feels like such a relief. We have a spring concert that people look forward to. We call it Spronsert. Our spring trimester feels very relaxed. I think a lot of people usually allow themselves to take a breather after the long, hard winter, spending a lot of time outside and with friends, and it feels very relaxing.
I've read that Carleton takes environmental stewardship very seriously. Can you tell me more about that?
I truly think that Carleton is uniquely engaged in its community. Carleton engages with Northfield, with southeastern Minnesota, with the Twin Cities. I've been able to participate in city council meetings and see changes for more green space, more bike paths, encouraging people to grow native flora and fauna on their lawns. A lot of that is through this particular office that I've worked with, the Carleton Center for Community and Civic Engagement. That fellowship and working at that office has been kind of the cornerstone of my experience at Carleton. I've, through my work, been able to grow professionally because I've learned a lot about project management and leadership and communication skills, but I've also grown just in my understanding of myself and my interests in the world.
환경 보호를 위한 칼턴 컬리지의 노력은 롤스필드 밖에서도 이어집니다. 미국의 다른 도시나 외국에서 진행되는 프로젝트일지라도 칼스는 전공과 상관없이 모두가 환경 보호를 위해 노력하죠. So, tell me about the project you've been working on in India.
Usually we say no matter where you go, the physics is the same, so why bother traveling, right? So, but this one, it mattered. It's a long-term project, teaching and taking off-campus programs to India and literally try to change the policy on implementation of solar panels on farms for water usage. If you're a small farmer and you're way out in the middle of nowhere, it's hard to get electricity there. And electricity is unreliable in places like rural India. But this is stuck at the policy level, at the state government level, it's stuck at the technical level, and it's stuck to the implementation levels. No one done it, so they're like, why should we be the first? By getting involved with a non-governmental organization in southern India, in Tamil Nadu, we studied this issue and then we helped solve the problem by doing an installation. So that is a way for people to learn about the science, the policy, the everything of energy issues.
칼턴 칼리지의 환경 보호 노력의 가장 좋은 예는 캠퍼스 에너지 및 환경관리부장인 마사 라슨 씨가 운영하는 환경관리부에서 찾아볼 수 있을 거예요. Hi Martha, so great to meet you.
Hey Emily, it's great to see you today.
Manager of Campus Energy and Sustainability is an impressive title. What is the position like?
Well, I was the first person to assume this role at Carleton, and my job is really broad. One, of course, is energy management. I also manage our renewable energy, so our 2 wind turbines, and the construction of our geothermal system.
Wind turbines? Geothermal system? Tell me more about those.
Sure, so Carleton does have 2 commercial-sized wind turbines. The first one was built in 2004, and it began as a community effort. And as the project progressed, the best site location was actually close to Carleton. And so in the end, it was Carleton and Carleton alone who funded the project. And that turbine at the time could not connect to our campus grid. So it connects to the public utility grid, and Carleton gets paid for the electricity that it produces. The second one was funded by a donor who was very excited about the first wind turbine and wanted to see Carleton build a turbine that actually connected to the Carleton campus electrical grid. And that's why the second one connects directly to the campus, and it basically eliminates about 25 to 30% of the power that we need to pull from the public grid.
That's so cool. What about geothermal?
So in Minnesota, obviously, we have really extreme temperatures. Everybody knows about our cold winters, but we also have fairly hot, humid summers. So because of those extremes, geothermal works really well. What we do is in the summer, when we're pulling heat out of the buildings, the chilled water loop is absorbing all that heat, and it brings that heat back to the heat pump down into the geothermal well fields. And these are 300 wells, each 520 feet deep. And what that does is it kind of stores that energy for later in the fall and winter when we are heating dominant. The heating loop will then go to those geothermal well fields almost like a bank account and withdraw some heat.
That's so futuristic. How did you become so passionate about sustainability?
Sure. So in 2009, I was living in Chicago, and at that time, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill happened in the Gulf of Mexico, and there was a ton of news coverage about the devastation there.
Overnight, a powerful explosion rocked a giant oil rig.
The greatest oil spill in American history now covers 29,000 square miles.
Our culture is threatened, our coastal economy is threatened, and everything that I know and love is at risk. These are America's wetlands.
I got a surge of feeling that these environmental crises that we face are an all-hands-on-deck problem. Everybody needs to do something to fix this. And so I really did at that time decide that I had to change the course of my career specifically toward environmental issues.
You've certainly made an impact. I understand that you even won an award. Could you tell me more about that?
Sure. I won an Energy Innovator of the Year award from the Association of Energy Engineers. I think I was nominated just because of the size and breadth of the Carleton geothermal project. It was very exciting for me, I think especially because I have an engineering education, but I am not a practicing engineer. I'm more of a project manager. So to be honored by an engineering society was very special. And of course, this project wouldn't be happening without an army of people. So I think that's the true magic, is how that huge team came together to support a really transformational moment in Carleton's history.
칼턴 칼리지의 기후 액션 플랜은 그 학생들만큼이나 야망이 큽니다. 하지만 마사씨의 팀이라면 그 목표를 반드시 이룰 수 있을 거라고 확신합니다. As one of the highest ranked liberal arts colleges in the country, how is Carleton's approach to liberal arts different?
The liberal arts approach to learning across disciplines, is really embedded in the educational experience at Carleton. Some of the jobs that you're going to want don't exist right now. And so what sort of education will prepare you for those jobs that don't exist? An education that helps you think critically, an education that lets you consider different perspectives. Carleton is a place that builds you in a way that lets you be agile for whatever sort of career path you want to take.
What should applicants consider when submitting their application?
Our review process really is holistic. We're not just looking at how you've done in your coursework, but we're also looking at your thoughts included through your writing. Some of the best essays I've read are about the most minute things that happen in a person's life. It could be recounting their daily commute to school, the people they interact with. It could be talking about their role as a caretaker for a younger sibling. When we look at your essay, we're not necessarily looking for you to solve all the world's problems, but for us to get a sense of who you are and what you value.
What is the Carleton experience like for international students?
I think one thing our international students are often surprised by is how quickly Carleton feels like a home to them. Through the sort of support that's offered to international students, not just in terms of academic support, but also that transition to life in the United States. Our Office of Intercultural and International Life is a phenomenal resource. All international students who want to have a peer mentor their freshman year are able to have one. And these are upperclassmen that will kind of show you how to navigate campus physically, but also then how to take advantage of all the resources that exist, whether it's our Quantitative Resource Center or our Student Health and Counseling Office. I think the other thing that our international students really value is not just these different offices on campus, it's the student body themselves. The warmth that they feel from students that are coming from other parts of the world is something that is really comforting and reassuring.
I'm beginning to understand what you meant by Carleton being the best kept secret. What do you love about Carleton?
Carleton students really embody this idea of being serious about their academics, but also laughing at the silliness of life.
It was a real eye-opener for me as somebody who went to a huge university. There's a huge difference in just the tone and the feel of this community. It feels so tight-knit and fun and cozy.
Yes, Carleton's small, but those who have met Carleton students always seem to remember.
It's interesting that after Carleton, it feels like a community that somehow manages to make its way all over the world and is doing really cool things.
I went to a conference, one of the more prominent conferences in quantum information theory, and at one point I realized that approximately 1/10 of the people in the room had taken quantum mechanics with me. It was like, wow, there's so many Carls out there. I had no idea.
The personal growth I experienced at Carleton prepared me extremely well for a lifelong learning process. Part of the reason I'm excited to do this work is that I really believe in Carleton as an institution and how it changes people's lives for the better, and how it can change people's lives around the world.
The world is not a textbook problem at the back of the physics book or the econ book. The world is very rich. And when you see a problem, you have to be able to understand how to approach it from different directions, but also how to work with people who are approaching it from directions different from you.
When I came to Carleton, I felt like I had a whole collection of things that I was interested in, but I had no idea how to put them together or how to make sense of them. I've grown in a multitude of ways, but I think one of the most meaningful ones is I just feel more assured in myself and more confident to enter the world, which I think is a gift that I couldn't have imagined.
Our students learn throughout the course of their work with us that it's not just about solving the problem, and it's not just about putting on an event. It's about how those things come together to teach the world about what we're doing.